services usually held in our building have been suspended until further notice. But we will continue to hold discussion group at 9:15 a.m. and worship at 10:30 a.m. every Sunday via Zoom until it's safe to hold large group functions again in our newly decorated building. If you're joining us for the first time this morning, we extend a special welcome to you. We invite you to stay on the Zoom meeting after the service concludes. When many in attendance, we enjoy a bit of conversation with each other. And we would enjoy meeting you if you would like to introduce yourself. We also invite you to see our website, which is at uuormond.org. That's UUORMOND.org. And look for the welcome button under the picture of our minister, Reverend Kathy. There you will find how to get further connected with our congregation and learn more about Unitarian Universalism. Now, our announcements for the good of our community. Our Lady of Lourdes Catholic Church will have its annual Interfaith Thanksgiving service virtually this year, and sadly, no turkey dinner will be served. But Father Phil will still host Muslim, Sikh, Buddhist, Sufi, Unitarian Universalist, Jewish, and ecumenical Christian clergy as they offer prayers reflecting their unique theologies. And Reverend Kathy is included. The video, which will be available on Our Lady of Lourdes website, premieres on Monday, November 23rd at 6 p.m. You can view it anytime after as well, as it will run for a few weeks after that. And yes, we will be celebrating Christmas ourselves this year with a virtual Zoom service filled with beautiful Christmas music on December 24th at 5:30, Christmas Eve. Contact Ludi Goodson because the talent will be local and she will help with more musical details. Our building remains closed to most activities while the final stages of the renovation are underway. If you must be in the building, a mask is required. Please practice social distancing, and a hand sanitizer dispenser is located in the kitchen. And now, Ludi, I understand you have something exciting about our website to announce.
Yes, we are working on developing another website that no one will see until after we've got it put together. But what we really want, the team of us really want, is to add more photographs of our community and our engagement with the community. So we would really like for you, if you have those kinds of photographs, and when you're at certain events, like maybe Friday morning, with the event at our parking lot, if you took photos, any of those kinds of photos, because we want to reveal who we are as part of the website, just go ahead and send them to me. And my email is songsavor, spelled SONGSAVOR, @hotmail.com. But you can also find more information in the directory. We're excited. We hope our new website will be very well organized and visually welcoming for all of us and for the visitors.
Thank you, Ludi. And Christmas will obviously be a little different this year, but the Alliance is stepping up to the plate. The UU Alliance is fundraising to purchase gifts for local families whose children face particularly dreary Christmas. Please consider a donation to the UU Alliance for this very worthy project. As the treasurer of the Alliance, you may send a check made out to the UU Alliance to me, Linda Kalajian. My address is in the directory. If that's too difficult, send it to the church, to the UU Alliance, made out to the UU Alliance. Be greatly appreciated. You can also text me at my cell phone number, which is in the directory, to let me know of your pledge to send in the check. And we'll make a lot of children much happier this Christmas time. Also, if you're interested in a parking lot bake sale, please text Kathy Jackson or leave a message. We're considering doing a bake sale, and we'd like to know if there's interest in that. Please also remember to schedule all events through our administrator, Kathy Jackson. While we're not holding congregational activities in the building, we still need to coordinate Zoom meetings and events and have them on the church calendar. And in the absence of a physical passing of the offering basket at this time, we invite you to make any smaller donations in honor of our virtual service or in financial support of the congregation through our PayPal donation button, which is located on our website. For larger donations or pledge payments, please send your check to UUCOB. Greatly appreciated. And now we're going to listen to the beautiful voice of Ludi Goodson.
From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, and from this we live.
And now, at the sound of the chime, our service begins.
Well, good morning, Reverend Kathy, coming live through Zoom from our sanctuary. I am so happy to be here and to be with you all while in the building. Our things seem to be going very well right now with our bandwidth and Zoom, but we are a bit untested here. So if you could, if it's possible, please turn off your video, and of course, please mute. I could hear somebody's clicking all through the song, our prelude. So double check and make sure that you are muted if you don't have a speaking part in the service. And I call us to worship with the words of Jalaluddin Rumi, 14th century Sufi mystic and poet. Out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there is a field. I'll meet you there. When the soul lies down in that grass, the world is too full to talk about. Ideas, language, even the phrase each other doesn't make sense. Come, let us worship together as one this morning.
Before we light our chalice, I would like to make a correction to the announcements that I just made. If you're interested in a parking lot bake sale, either to bake or to buy cookies, please contact Ellen Nielsen. Her information is in the directory. And thank you very much. And now, if you will join me as I light the chalice with these words of Zephrine Humphrey. They all knelt together, and suddenly not a barrier of any kind remained, not a sundering distinction in the whole throng, but every life flamed into the other, and all flamed into one life, and were hushed in ineffable peace. And now, join me as we all say together our congregational covenant. Love is the spirit of this congregation, and service is our aim, to dwell together in peace and freedom, to seek the truth, and to help one another. These are our goals.
Our joys and concerns this morning, Teresa Webb wants everyone to know how much Roy Madison and she enjoy and appreciate your outpouring of care through cards, gifts, and messages. Madison continues to slowly recover from her snake bite. And from Dan Kerr, my brother continues to deteriorate as he suffers Lewy body disease, a severe form of dementia. Also, there is discussion of transferring him to a hospice facility soon. Also, my oldest daughter, Kirsten, and husband, Dwayne, have been ill with the after effects of COVID-19, making it difficult for them to return to their life and livelihood. This has been hard on me and my sister-in-law, and we ask for your good thoughts and prayers. You have them, Dan Kerr, and extend them to your sister-in-law for us. Earlier this week, I attended A.J. Sanghi's funeral. It was a lovely Hindu ceremony, but Sue has been hit really hard by her husband's death. She's with her son and family right now, but but going forward, she's going to need our support, the support of her friends at UUCOB. Please check in with her in a couple of weeks or contact Joyce Nelson, Care Committee Chair, for how you can help. Marty King wishes to share that her husband, John, has been hospitalized at the VA hospital after being diagnosed with COVID, but he's responding well to treatment. Please hold them both in good thought and prayer. And one last concern that came in this morning from Gaia Davies. Nancy Boyette fell yesterday and broke her left wrist and bruised some ribs. She needs a local hand surgeon. So if you know a good one, please call Gaia. Please hold Nancy in good thoughts and prayer. And if you're friends with her, give her a call, maybe in a week or so. You can text her, you can send cards of support. She lives alone. Gaia and Kirtland will be a direct source of support for her in the course of her being treated and healing from this broken wrist. And now, if you will join me in prayer for all of the joys and concerns which remain on our hearts this morning and unspoken. Spirit of life, bless us this day with the understanding that joy and woe are woven fine, that whosoever brings us tears also brings us great joy, that the hours before dawn are often the darkest. Spirit of life and love, bestow upon us the peace which passes our understanding, so that faith, hope, and love may fill our hearts and still our worrying minds. Spirit of life and love, in this difficult time, bid us to strive for our best selves each day. Let our striving be for justice, equity, and compassion in our human relations. Inspire us to create beloved community in ever-widening circles. Spirit of life and love, we give thanks for this precious day and for all that is our life, for we know that our life is a gift, freely given and unearned. We give joyous praise for this, our one precious life. Amen. And now, if you would like to sing along with your selves muted, Spirit of Life, performed by Janet Strumpus. I open with the story of sign waving on Granada Bridge. Here is a picture. You see me standing with my ecumenical colleagues at the southeast corner of Granada and Beach Street. This person right here is Katie Steinberg. She has a unique, what I call entrepreneurial ministry. She's Presbyterian. This is Father Phil. This is a retired minister couple. They're Lutheran, and this young lady is brand new to the First Methodist Church just down the street. I don't know who that is. Her face is unrecognizable. No, it's me. In June of this year, in the wake of the death of George Floyd, a young man, Derek Schultz, and 25 of his friends decided to meet up at this corner every Wednesday from 4 to 6, waving signs for racial justice, including a large Black Lives Matter flag. One of these friends, David Wallens, told me that when they first began, it was a lonely affair with only a smattering of young people at times standing in the rain, persistently making their statement of justice and civil rights. They would get lots of drive-by honks of support along with a few jeers and middle fingers of disapproval, but nonetheless raising the awareness and consciousness around present-day civil rights concerns. It was, with every intention, a peaceful protest of police brutality and racial injustice. They had no connection to any political platform or other ambition. And I want to add here, there was an article in the Observer about this group, and it was the police chief of Ormond Beach who actually reached out to Derek Schultz and offered their presence. He was very much in support of their activity of raising awareness of Black Lives Matter and justice issues. The chief, Godfrey, I hope I've got his last name correct, the chief Godfrey said that he was very, in his own words, disgusted by what happened in Minneapolis, and he wanted to help. However, it didn't start out with a big bang, and at times there was no police presence when these folks were out on every Wednesday evening from 4 to 6. But at some point later in the summer, I don't know exactly when, a group of people started showing up across the street on the same Wednesday evenings, 4 to 6, on the southwest corner of Granada and Beach Street in front of City Hall. These folks, who probably outnumbered these young people, outnumbered them probably 3 to 1. They all, let me take that back. Almost all of them carried or wore some manner of Trump support, flags, signage. So it appeared to be a decidedly political gathering that looked like a Trump rally. Now, was it a response to what was going on across the street with the Black Lives Matter signs? I don't know. I also don't know when the Ormond police started showing up in number, but I would imagine that it was in response to the public safety issues of so many people gathering at that very busy corner. The police put up barricades along the sidewalk on all 4 corners to keep people from spilling out into the street. Patrol persons were stationed behind each group, and several motorcycle officers were stationed in the parking spaces along the Beach Street in front of that boat launch and park on our side of the street. Now this, what I just described, is what I experienced the several times I participated in this activity of racial justice and Black Lives Matter sign waving. I came at the specific invitation and urging of my clergy friend, Katie Steinberg. I didn't know Father Phil was there or had been participating. Now, the group of what seemed to be Trump supporters across the street, they were boisterous and noisy and shouting slogans and cheering when drivers would show their support. But after a little while, I began to notice a lot of jeering as well. Jeering directed at us across the street. One of them was, they said Black Lives Matter meant something like being like Marxist. And I know that It's one of the people who is involved in the national Black Lives Matter movement identifies as a Marxist, and I would imagine that that's scary to some people. But honestly, folks, these well-meaning kids were about as Marxist as my big toe. We heard all lives matter, and we heard that a lot, and of course that's true. What Black Lives Matter implies is that Black lives matter as much, Black lives matter too, and Black lives still matter. And something surprising to me, and that really hurt Father Phil's feelings, is that folks were yelling and pointing to us and actually naming us in some way as clergy and calling us baby killers. Now, I don't really understand this. I assume that they assume that because we're on the side of the street that we're liberals and that we support Roe versus Wade. That was what Father Phil thought anyway. And the shouting directed towards us was sometimes bitter and angry and resentful. It sounded that way. I couldn't always understand what they were saying, but the delivery was sometimes unmistakably hateful. Now, I want to stop here. We had a great group discussion this morning, and I want to stop here and differentiate. We have to be careful that the behavior of these people who looked like a Trump rally is not representative of all people who support Trump. It's not representative of all people who are Republicans. It's not behavior that I would, in my wildest dreams, expect to see from anybody in our congregation who is a Trump supporter. These people acted in a way that made them a particular contingent of Trump supporters. And in fact, I don't have any way to verify it, but somebody from the organizers of this, of the Black Lives Matter group, David Wallens, I think, he said that this effort was, this particular contingent was actually a moving feast. like they would show up on street corners in Ormond, in New Smyrna, and the leader was a guy from Longwood who was particularly conservative. The bottom line, though, is that on our side of the street, we were specifically asked not to wave political signs. We were asked not to respond or engage in any way the statements coming from across the street. But as I watched and listened, I was struck by the intensity of the anger coming from the other side of the street. I think that the genesis of all anger is fear. And I wondered, what is it that these folks across the street are so fearful of? Why do they begrudge us the desire for fairness and justice for all American citizens? Why are their hearts so hardened against us? Now, these questions are rhetorical in the context of this sermon. There's no time today to parse out the deep political divide that defines our society today. But I give you this story as a real-life example of what can happen when hearts are hardened by fear and pain, greed and pride. An epilogue before I go on. I showed up for the Wednesday night sign waving a week and a day after the election. There were no Trump people in front of City Hall. There were no police or barricades either just a small band of determined sign wavers for racial justice. I went again this past Wednesday, and guess what? They're back and angry as ever. And the police and barricades are back too. Here is what I think is another truth. We have all, at one time or another in our lives, been the angry Trump supporter in my story, or to take it out of the political context, we have all been sure we are right, sure of our moral high ground, and therefore judgmental of those who don't agree with us. We have all been harsh and impatient with those who don't share our knowledge, our values, our standards. We have all felt more comfortable with people of like minds and felt stronger in number with those with whom we share an identity. But we are not well served by this kind of protection in the long run. Protection of our egos, protection of ideas and outcomes we cling to, protection against the possibility of being wrong. It is some of the most difficult work in our lives to not only recognize our own faults and limitations, but to be forgiving, kind, and compassionate towards ourselves as well. I ran upon a great essay by a Muslim woman who converted to Sufism. She was on a boat tour of a lake that contained canyon cliffs of sandstone which soared high above the water surface. Because of its sedimentary nature and ability to absorb and hold water, these rocky formations were remarkably full of trees, vegetation, and animal life. The woman realized this was a metaphor for her life's journey, which led to a softening of her heart. She had grown up within a particularly strict doctrinal and patriarchal version of Islam. She said her self-image and her values were formed out of fear and judgment. Her beliefs and sense of a right and wrong were rigid. Her heart was unyielding. But when she was introduced to Sufism, which teaches a divinity that is infinitely loving and compassionate, she had to face her egoic need to harshly judge herself and others. It was a painful process to let go of old patterns of behavior. But with a humbled and tender heart, she was able to respond to situations as they were rather than what she thought they should be. She found daily interactions that were once trying, like a spat with a loved one or someone cutting in front of her in the grocery line. These trying moments, she found, became opportunities for spiritual growth. With a tender heart, her capacity for compassion and understanding grew. With a softer heart, she had more room for understanding compassion in her life, just as the softness of the sandstone cliffs had room between layers to sustain a verdant life. She gives a short poem by Rumi to bring home her point. How should spring bring forth a garden on hard stone? Become earth, that you may grow flowers of many colors. For you have been a heartbreaking rock. Once, for the sake of experiment, be earth. Our hearts can become hardened by ego, beliefs, values, and formative experiences. Our hearts can also be hardened to the experience of pain and suffering. As a result, we may become protective of ourselves and turn away from the memory of our own pain or turn our backs on the pain of others when we see it. even though this refusal to acknowledge pain and suffering in ourselves and others is an understandable defense mechanism, it makes our hearts brittle and easily broken. Joan Halifax is a Zen Buddhist teacher who spent the latter half of her career as a hospice caregiver. She has provided spiritual care to countless young people, young and old, from different countries and cultures, who in the process of dying greatly suffered sometimes from their afflictions. She reminds us that to be a constant witness to human suffering, one must have a spacious heart full of compassion. She also reminds us that every human being has an innate capacity for compassion, an innate capacity to be compassionate, but it must be cultivated or aroused. In other words, there are certain conditions for our compassion to grow. First, to be with suffering, we cannot become attached to outcomes. We must fully accept that first, pain and suffering are inevitable human conditions, and two, that no one human can avoid it. Halifax says that compassion's enemies are pity, moral outrage, and fear. Pity for ourselves or others is not the same thing as compassion. Pity is a form of protectiveness, a refusal to fully accept our human condition. Moral outrage, an example might be a why me attitude towards suffering, is a similar form of defensiveness. Why not me? Because if it's not me, it will be someone else. Suffering cannot be avoided. And lastly, fear is our biggest foe in cultivating compassion. Fear freezes the heart. Fear hardens us for feeling with others in their pain. Halifax tells us with a soft, compassionate heart, we feel more when we are with pain and suffering, but a soft heart also returns us to a baseline more quickly. From my own experience as a chaplain, I know the importance of cultivating a spacious heart through spiritual practice. My fellow chaplains and I all had our own rituals at the end of our shifts for honoring the experiences of our day or night and then letting them go. Not only were we cultivating soft hearts, but we were building resilience for ourselves. Without these practices, without building or expanding our capacity to be with suffering, our hearts would quickly break into pieces. Resilience is the capacity to feel more but return to a baseline quickly, just as a runner's heart beats fast with speed but quickly slows to normal when their jog is complete. No panting or gasping for the trained athlete. Joan Halifax tells us there is neuroscience behind building our resilience in the face of adversity. When our compassion is aroused, it lights up all parts of our brains, and over time, our compassionate resilience enhances our immune systems. Being hard-hearted is stressful. Being soft-hearted is peaceful. Halifax sums all this up in one catchphrase: strong back, soft front. She says, all too often, our so-called strength comes from fear, not love. And instead of having a strong back, many of us have a defended front, shielding a weak spine. In other words, we move through the world brittle and defensive, trying to conceal our lack of confidence. If we strengthen our backs, metaphorically speaking, and develop a spine that's flexible but sturdy, then we can risk having a front that's soft and open. Having an undefended heart and cultivating tenderness requires us to be authentic and transparent. And that requires courage. It requires us to move past our fears in order to fully see and accept the world, warts and all, and to put ourselves out there with our own warts and all, letting the world see us. As Unitarian Universalists, we are called to be just, equitable, and compassionate in our human relations. This is one of our principles, one of our 7 principles. We are called to cultivate the soft yet resilient hearts we need to build a better world, the world we want to see. We need to be the world we want to see. We must realize that the people on the other side of the street with different viewpoints are not the enemy. When they show their aggression, we must remember they are people first, our neighbors, whose hearts might be hardened by fear and pain and judgment. We must accept that they may never change, but that should not cause our hearts to become hardened against them. We, as Unitarian Universalists, are called to resilience and compassion in our justice work and in our living. My call to you today is to try on that strong back, soft front way of being. Being flexible and being open-hearted is going to be very important as we move forward, because as was pointed out this morning in discussion group, we may be in for a lot of change. And we can't possibly anticipate what that's going to look like right now. We may be in for a lot of change as a society, as a democracy, of how our political system and how our judicial system works. But for now, we must let go of outcomes. And we must also see people as people. That was also mentioned this morning in discussion group. And Brené Brown, you may know her as a researcher and a social worker. She talks a lot about authenticity and being vulnerable and how countercultural that is in our society. But one thing she recommends in this divided environment that we find ourselves in is to get close up. Because when you get close in, the more close in you get with somebody, the less divisive and judgmental you tend to be. That takes a lot of courage. When I think about the next time I'm out there on the Granada Bridge, and those folks are across the street, I would think about the possibility of engaging one of them in conversation. It's a bit scary. I don't know that my heart is soft enough if I am willing to listen closely and deeply. But if we are to live out our Unitarian Universalist values, it might be necessary. Let us keep our hearts soft through adversity. Let us be open and compassionate. My chaplain supervisor, when I left the program, gave me a bumper sticker. And he said, and it said, "If you lived in your heart, you'd be home by now." May that be so for all of us. our anthem, Looked for You, words and music by Ann Griffin.
Looked for you across the water, where the heron softly glides, landing there among the cattails, where he fished the other side. As I looked for you, I wondered how the heron mourns his mate. Does he see her in reflection as the ripples undulate? One day you said life is fragile. What we value sometimes breaks. Mother Nature never reckons what she gives and what she takes. Yes, I wonder how the heron reconciles himself to loss as he stands there in the shadows, draped in ancient Spanish moss. Does his wisdom give him courage? Does he hide the pain inside? Is he feeling lost and hopeless at the gift that's now denied? One day you said life is fragile. What we value sometimes breaks. Mother Nature never reckons what she gives and what she takes. Looked for you tonight at sunset, found you there among the stars, on this shoreline looking skyward. Grateful love can reach so far. Still I wonder how the heron reconciles himself to loss as he stands there in reflection, eyeing me from far across. One day you said life is fragile. What we value sometimes breaks. Mother Nature never reckons what she gives and what she takes.
Just fantastic. Thank you, Dan.
Yes, thank you, Dan. And now join us as we extinguish the symbol of our community sharing. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
For our benediction, the words again of Rumi, the guest house. This being human is a guest house. Every morning, a new arrival, a joy, a depression, a meanness. Some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all. Even if they're a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture, still treat each guest honorably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice, meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whoever comes because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. Go in peace this day, friends. Success.